Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 12th Annual Graphic Novel Making Contest celebration. My name is Jill Bourne, and I am the City Librarian of your San Jose Public Library. I'm thrilled to have the honor, once again, of emceeing this amazing event as we celebrate another year of the Graphic Novel Making Contest. This is an exciting day when the library gets to recognize and celebrate all of the creators who entered the contest this year. It's always amazing to see what a wide range of talented people participate in this program. This year, we received a total of 173 entries in 5 different age categories: children 0 to 7, children 8 to 9, preteens ages 10 to 12, teens ages 13 to 17, and adults ages 18 and over. We're here today to announce the winners in each of these age categories. Entries were judged on content and illustration by a panel of industry professionals and library staff. And lastly, we will also be making a digital collection of the submissions available through our website, sjpl.org. Starting Monday, August 24th, you can view this year's submissions on BiblioBoards. Look out for our blog post announcing this year's winners. Our BiblioBoards graphic novel making contest collection from this year will be included, so you can tell all your friends and family that you are a published comics creator. Now, before we get started, I want to thank and recognize those people who made the program possible this year. As with many plans we've had for 2020, there were many that needed to be modified to bring you this year's program. So first off, I want to thank the talented individuals who provided supportive artistic programming this summer. Each year, alongside the contest, we provide supplemental comic making programs to help participants create their best comics. These programs provide professionals insight and foster creativity. This year, we were able to provide more than 30 different virtual classes to more than 900 program participants. Classes included storyboarding, figure drawing, character design, cover art for comics, storytelling, making comics, how to keep a sketchbook, and more. We want to thank those who stepped up to the challenge this year and helped educate our aspiring artists, storytellers, and creators. And additionally, I would like to recognize and thank our community sponsors, some of whom have helped judge entries, host programs, provide amazing prizes, and have supported this contest: the San Jose Public Library Foundation, Sakura of America, DC Comics, Elusive Comics and Games, and San Jose Museum of Arts. And finally, I would also like to recognize all our dedicated staff who have helped make this content a huge success, including the members of the Graphic Novel Making Contest Committee, the San Jose Public Library Marketing Team, and the Summer Learning Committee. So let's pause a second and thank everybody for all their hard work. Virtual applause. Today we have the pleasure of hearing from 4 talented guest speakers from different artistic industries. First, Chad Sell, an illustrator and cartoonist, is creator of the Cardboard Kingdom and Doodleville. Shannon Wright, illustrator and cartoonist in her first graphic novel, Twins, arriving this October. Shea Fontana, writer from film, television, and graphic novels, known for developing and writing the DC superhero girls. And Jean Ha, comic artist and writer who has won 4 Eisner Awards, the highest award in American comics. Thanks to all of them for being here today. And then stay tuned after our award ceremony. Chad Sell, Shea Fontana, and Jean Ha will be participating in a live Q&A panel, question and answer panel. If you have any questions for these professionals, comics artists and writers, you'll be able to ask them then. So before we hear from them and announce our first group of winners, I want to make a few little announcements. First, all participants will be able to pick up their prizes starting on Wednesday, August 26th at their chosen express pickup location. All winners and honorable mentions will be contacted by mail after the ceremony today to learn how to pick up their prize bundle at one of our express pickup locations, which is a branch library that is providing curbside pickup essentially right now. Express pickup locations are available Monday through Saturday from 1 to 6 p.m. And a recording of the ceremony and other graphic novel making contest news can be found at sjpl.org/graphic novels, period. Check there regularly throughout the year for upcoming programs, contests, and reading lists related to comics and graphic novels from the San Jose Public Library. Okay, it's time to announce our first group of winners for the graphic novel making contest. We will start with our youngest winners from the children ages 7 and under category. First, honorable mention goes to Aria Rao Smith for the entry titled How Oliver Found Love.
Yay!
Yay!
Second award, are you ready? Goes to Sonia Wang for the entry titled Supergirl.
Yay!
Sonia!
Now, we're going to third place goes to Jasmine Jian for the entry titled Herbal Master and the Fox.
Yeah.
Second place, Elise Yoon for her entry titled Skating Star.
Yay!
Yay!
And now, ready? First place to Vrinda Arvind for her entry titled Nana Banana.
Yay!
Nana banana! Nana banana!
Please join me in congratulating all of our young artists who entered a comic this year. Your hard work and dedication is very impressive, and I hope you continue to create great, amazing work, as you grow. Woo.
Yay!
Okay, so before announcing our next group of winners, I want to welcome our first guest speaker. Chad Sell co-wrote and illustrated his first graphic novel, The Cardboard Kingdom, with a team of 10 collaborators. His first full-length solo project, Doodleville, was just released in June of this year. Please welcome Chad Sell.
Hello.
Good.
Thanks so much for having me. I think this is an amazing contest and an amazing program. I'm going to try sharing my screen. Da, da, da. Okay, so you should be seeing my screen. Let's see. So, once upon a time, in a faraway land named Wisconsin, there was a young boy who liked to draw, and that boy was me. I'm sure many of you can relate. I would just fill up sketchbooks and sketchbooks of drawings full of characters. And over the years, I would draw certain characters over and over again. They kind of lived in my head. They had a life of their own. They changed. They grew as I grew up. And eventually they kind of found their final form only after lots and lots of drawing and exploration. I don't know if you can see, but my cat has joined me. And I really think it's interesting how characters kind of take on a life of their own in our heads, in our imaginations, and also on the page as we draw them. In my book, Doodleville, actually a bunch of the characters that I've been drawing for years show up. This is one of my oldest characters, Panja, even though he's teeny tiny on the cover. In Doodleville, drawings really do come to life. Just like how the characters live in your head or on the page, in Doodleville, if you draw them, they come to life. And these are doodles that are drawn by the main character, Doodleville. By the main character, Drew, and she's drawn a whole city for them that they live on in her bedroom wall. But of course, like any character or like any creative idea, it doesn't always turn out like you expect. Drew's doodles are mischievous. They explore. On a trip to the Art Institute of Chicago, they climb onto the paintings and interact. They dance with Degas ballerinas and they run through paintings, and Drew is in charge of desperately getting them back into her sketchbook before they cause any more trouble. I wanted to show that there's good and bad to creativity, that a character can surprise you. even your own drawing can surprise you. A story might not go in the direction that you expected. And I think that even though in our world, drawings don't magically come to life, all of you have made your own magic characters come to life in these comics. Even though they don't magically spring to life, it's your work and your creativity that has brought so many characters together. And I think it's amazing, like Jill said, that all of your comics will be available to look at. And we've been able to look at them and be so impressed by all the skills that you have as young cartoonists. It's kind of scary to share your art sometimes, and especially for a contest. Something that I'm interested in is dealing with that disappointment if you weren't one of the winners this year. There's always next year. You can always make more comics. When you share your art, you open yourself up to others. In Doodleville, Drew is in an art club, and she draws this new character, Levi the Leviathan, that she's super proud of. But her art club friends don't really get him. Is he supposed to be scary? He's kind of goofy. What is he supposed to be? And it's her friends' reactions to her character, Levi, that make her question him and make her question her own abilities. And eventually she tries to cross out Levi. And that's a terrible feeling. And it's actually by crossing him out that she kind of turns him into a monster. And that monster appears whenever she's doubting herself or feeling anxious about her own creativity and her potential. And eventually it becomes the monster that she needs help fighting in Doodleville. I brought all this up because I don't want any of you to doubt yourselves. Even if you won an award, maybe you didn't win the top award. Maybe you question whether it was good or whether you drew something correctly. We all have doubts. I still have my dark Leviathan that makes me doubt everything I do all the time. But luckily in Doodleville, Drew has friends in her art club, and they each have their own characters. These are just some of them, and they all team up. They say, Art Club United. And it's only with the help of all of Drew's friends that she's able to defeat the Dark Leviathan. Like Jill said, I created the Cardboard Kingdom with 10 writers, and that was my first book. I had never made a book before, so I needed the help of those 10 writers to make my first book. And now I feel confident to make my own books, as well as do more collaborative books in the future. I think that it's so special that more than 100 people sent in comics. That makes all of you cartoonists. I was excited to talk to all of you because it's rare that I get to talk to a group of talented young cartoonists and that I get to see your work. And more importantly, that you get to see each other's work. Sometimes when you look at someone else's work, you might worry, I'm not as good as them, or how can I do that? But I think actually you can find a lot of strength in community, and you can learn so much by looking at the work that other kids your age are making and other people older than you are making. And what's so neat about this contest is that it categorizes by age. So you can even look category by category and see how people grow and develop and what people are capable of at different times in their life. So I hope that all of you take inspiration in the contest and in the community, rather than letting a dark Leviathan of your own make you question your work and your worth, because your stories are worth telling. Thanks so much. All of my info is available on chadsellcomics.com, and I'd love for you to reach out, and I'll be available at the end of the session for Q&A. Great.
Thank you, Chad. Yay! Woo! Thank you for sharing your story and for demonstrating how art is magical and bringing these wonderful characters to life. I think that so many of us can relate to that feeling of feeling insecure or not believing in yourself at some moment. And so thank you so much for sharing that with our artists. And we cannot wait to see where Cardboard Kingdom and Doodleville series will take us. So any questions that you have for Chad can be put in the Q&A box at the bottom, and your question may be asked at the end of the ceremony during our question and answer portion. I guess the Q&A is at the bottom. It's over there for me, but it's at the bottom for you guys. So it's now time to announce our winners in the children ages 8 to 9 category. So first, honorable mention goes to Leo Zhao for the entry titled "The Thing in the Closet." Woo!
Yo!
Yo! I'm a little scared of that thing. Honorable mention goes to George Liu for the entry titled "The Alien's Gift." Yay, George! Now, third place goes to Adia Muhammad for the entry titled Adi the Supergirl. Yay!
Adi.
Hey, Adi, look, so good. Okay, second place goes to Isha Sridhar for the entry titled Coco's Crazy Day.
Woo. Sure.
Yay.
Okay, are we ready? Drum roll. First place goes to Samvit Mahadevan for the entry titled Lost in the Cave, an Augie and Chip Adventure.
Yay.
Hey, Sambit.
Nice. Okay. Thank you to all our young artists who entered in our children's ages 8 to 9 category. And congratulations again to our winners. Yay!
Hey.
Okay. Now I'd like to move on to welcome our next guest speaker, Shannon Wright. Shannon Wright is a cartoonist and illustrator who has worked for many notable organizations such as The Guardian, Time Magazine, New York Times, Mother Jones, NPR, Google, and Scholastic. She illustrated the wonderful picture book, My Mommy Medicine, and her first graphic novel, Twins, will be released this October. Please help me welcome Shannon Wright.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Shannon.
Hi. So I'm going to screen share also. Do you want to, hold on, I'm going to try to screen share. Yes. So here we go. So my name is Shannon Wright. And first off, I want to say I'm so happy to be here with you all. The comics I got to witness and see were amazing. I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away. And you all should be very proud of yourselves. Give each other a round of applause. But yeah, I'm so glad to be here, and I'm going to introduce myself. Again, my name is Shannon Wright. I'm a cartoonist and illustrator. I am based in Virginia, so I'm on the East Coast. I've illustrated a picture book called My Mommy Medicine. That was my first picture book. And then I illustrated a book called I'm Gonna Push Through. And I'm the co-creator on my upcoming graphic novel, Twins, that comes out October 6th. So seeing your work has really ignited this fire in me. And another thing that I want to talk about is my early life of drawing comics and stuff. So I feel like we all love to draw and stuff, and we can say that we started drawing maybe when we were super young and super little. And so seeing all of your art, I dug in and found some of my old art in my early days of when I was first making illustrations and stuff. And this is what I had to make. So it was very refreshing to see everyone's illustrations. And then from there, I got older, I started practicing a little bit more, and I started to lean into cartoons and anime, things that I really love to keep me drawing, and they kept me energized. And so that was something that really got me going. But the thing is that I want to commend you all on is you have drawn and made comics so early on. And I didn't even start drawing comics until I was a little older and I got to college. So seeing your work was wow, I wish I had had that extra oomph to make a comic because what you guys presented was so amazing. So I went to school and I met some friends and I started making comics, and it was a great experience. These were some of my early comics from college. And the thing that I find beautiful is that I had that network of friends and people to share with that were just like, hey, you like drawing, you like storytelling. There's a way you can combine the two. And I guess at the time I didn't realize that was a thing. So I was able to find that place. And once I left comics, I started doing things independently and making comics about things that were happening in the world, because I was trying to navigate my feelings and things I stood for, like political things that I was standing for and believed in. But then I also wanted to make sure I was doing things on my own and making just silly comics about Legos and a girl fighting crime and stuff because she has allergies, or just twins in space, like alien twins in space. And so I took that and I just ran with it. And it was hard. It was hard because, again, I was learning comics at the same time and I didn't know what I was doing and all that, but it ended up working out. And I'm so glad that I found a place in that, and it really helped. So I would say my advice to you all, because currently this is twins, this is where I currently am. I would say my advice to you all is that your journey, you have no idea where it's going to go. It could take you to a whole different path. Like, I just thought I was going to draw pictures, just individual pictures, but my journey and my friends and stuff took me on to the path of comics. And I want you guys to know that, like, you are a comic creator in any form, like any type of tool. Like, you are a comic creator if you are making things with your friends. You are a comic creator if you're only using a pencil and ballpoint pen. You're a comic creator if you are imagining drastic worlds of magical creatures, or if you're just recording what your pet did that day, or you went to the beach with your family. You're a comic creator in so many ways, and it's going to change and shape, and you're going to go from one thing and you're going to end up in a final stage. And along the way, you're going to meet people. You're going to meet people and friends who are waiting to hear your story. So I want to say that in those times when you don't know what to do, try to seek ways to, like, find ways to record whatever it may be. It could just be you had a hard day, you want to record that, or you want to share your stories of the adventures you and your friends went on. You can talk about your pets or the aliens or the funny animal creatures going on adventures. But most all, share your story. Be happy to share your story, because we're excited to share it. We're excited to see it. Once again, I was blown away by the entries, all of the entries and all of the winners. And I have to commend you all. Like, we are so proud of you. And I look forward to seeing what stories and adventures you all get into in the future. Thank you so much. You can follow me at shannon-wright.com, and I look forward to seeing more.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your gorgeous illustrations. One of the greatest things I was just thinking of, even though this is kind of odd that we have to do our program virtually, is that we can connect with incredible artists, not only locally, but from across the country. This has been a real treat. And I know we all look forward to seeing your debut graphic novel, Twins, which is coming in October. as well as you said, the future illustrations and projects that all of our young artists do in the future. So thank you again for being here. Let's hear it for Shannon. Woo!
Woo! Shannon!
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Let's continue with our celebration of our amazing participants by announcing the winners in the pre-teen, which is ages 10 to 12 category. First, our honorable mention goes to Denise Din for the entry titled 2020. I cannot wait to read that. Yay, Denise.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, next honorable mention goes to Veronica Yakovets for the entry entitled The Cat versus the Dog Diaries. Great job, Veronica.
Monica.
Yay.
And then next, third place goes to Victoria Romanovich for the entry titled Goat Pro. Yay!
Yay.
Hey, go Pro.
Go Pro! Our second place goes to Lucia Nguyen for the entry titled Lost and Found. Yay!
Yay.
Yeah.
Good job, Lucia. And first place, I cannot wait to read this, goes to Adeline Wu for the entry titled The Adventures of the Bunnies in Our Backyard. Idea. Yay! Perfect. Congratulations to all of the winners in this category. And next up, we are going to welcome our next guest speaker. Shea Fontana is a writer for film, television, and graphic novels. Her credits include developing and writing the DC Superhero Girls animated shorts, TV specials, movies, and graphic novels, which I personally love. She has written for top comic titles, including Justice League, Wonder Woman, and Batman Overdrive. Her graphic novels have been New York Times bestsellers, and she's been honored with 4 Diamond Gem Awards. Let's give a warm welcome to Shea Fontana. Yay!
Yay.
We can't hear you, Shea.
Okay, you're muted. Might be the headphones.
Do a little bit of technical support here.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Technical difficulties, sorry everyone. All right, so hello San Jose, super excited to be here. I will run through my introduction very quickly. I'm Shea Fontana. I'm going to share my screen just like everybody else. I am so absolutely amazed by the work I've seen from everyone in this competition. And I'm so, proud and honored to be a part of what you're doing here. So thank you so much for having me. So I'm Shea Fontana and I am a writer. So here are a few of the graphic novels and comics I have worked on. I've done DC Superhero Girls, I've done Batman Overdrive, I did Wonder Woman. I've also written a bunch of TV stuff, a lot of cartoons, and I've even written a few movies. Along the way, not to brag, but to totally brag, I have won a few awards and gotten a few accolades. Here are a few of those. Aren't they pretty? But I've done all of that because I am old. So let's go back way, way long ago to when I was your age. So here I am in the 5th grade. And now you guys all know my secret. I don't naturally have purple hair. I grew up in a very, very small town in the middle of nowhere called Roosevelt, Utah. It was the type of place where I had to go 2 cities over to get to the big city that had a Walmart. But back then, I already loved writing. I was obsessed with writing. After school, I would go home and I would feed my cow because, of course, I had a cow. That's what everybody had. And then I would sit at the family computer and I would write and write and write. I'd turn out story after story, and especially a lot of beginnings of stories because it was a lot easier to start a story than it was to finish it. And I entered every writing contest I came across. And here are all the writing contests that I won back then. No, wait. I didn't win any contest when I was a kid, which is why I feel a little bit awkward here as a guest speaker at a graphic novel contest. And I am so amazed by what all of the winners have done, the time, the effort, the talent you've all put into these submissions. It's truly so incredible. And you deserve all the trophies and all the plaques and every ribbon that you can get your hand on. You are light years ahead of where I was at your age. But right now, I want to take a minute to talk to those of you who may not win today from a fellow non-winner. I can tell by the work you've done putting together these comics that you guys all know something about stories. You are storytellers, and storytellers are superheroes. Storytellers have the power to create worlds from absolutely nothing. We save characters who are in danger, we orchestrate friendships, we connect with people at super speeds. And one thing I've learned from a career telling stories, particularly stories about superheroes, is that when it comes to our own lives, sometimes we aren't great at knowing where we are in our own story. Sometimes we think we're here when we're actually way over here at the beginning. We want to be here where Bruce Wayne becomes Batman and he's ready to take on all the criminals in Gotham, and he has a really cool car to do it with, and he's in excellent physical shape. But we're actually here where Bruce Wayne is getting his butt kicked in karate class. We want to be here where the DC superhero girls are celebrating this incredible victory of passing their finals and it's the end of the book. But we're actually right here where Supergirl is crashing into the barn because she's stressed out about taking the test. And as you've been working on and crafting your submissions for this contest and probably reading a lot along the way, you've probably noticed that in the best stories, things don't always go the way our characters want them to go. And when things don't go our way, as superhero storytellers, we have a special superpower. We have the power to harness the bad things and use it to make great stories. Now, this is a superpower that you have no matter if you win today or not. It's the superpower of gathering your own experiences and emotions and using them in your art and writing, whether or not you're writing about something that actually happened to you or something completely fantastical and fictional. As storytellers, we often look at other people and use that for stories. You know, we might look at our friends, like the way they talk or the way they act, put that in a story. We might look at our pets. I think I saw a few submissions where some of you featured some of your pets, which is totally understandable because this right here is my dog, Moxie. She made her guest appearance in DC Superhero Girls. I used that experience of having Moxie and knowing her and brought her into my story. But even more than looking at like someone's pets or your friends, there's an incredible superpower in looking at yourself and observing all of your own experiences and knowing that a whole range of experiences is needed to tell a great story. So take note of what you feel now. Are you excited? Are you scared? Do you have butterflies in your stomach? Are your fists clenched? You're so anxious? Are you maybe a little sad or disappointed if you didn't win in the category you wanted to win? As you move through this award ceremony experience and beyond, let yourself feel your feelings. No matter what happens, this experience will charge up your storytelling superpower. No matter how the contest goes today, you are now officially graphic novel creators. You entered the contest. When it was frustrating that you couldn't make a drawing look the way you wanted it to look, you kept going. You pushed through. You did the thing, you had the experience. You completed an entire comic. I didn't even complete my first comic until I was almost 30 years old. So you all have decades of experience on me. As storytellers, we can use our own experiences, whether fun, like Katana's having here with Beast Boy as they practice, whether upsetting, like Supergirl here having a really hard time with some bullies, or exciting, like this group of celebratory superheroes. Those experiences become part of our superpower toolkit. Each time we do something new, something risky or brave, we get a new tool. Entering this contest can be the experience that gives you your bumblebee sting, and that sting can help you take down Killer Croc. Or it could be the experience that gives you your Batmobile. Every experience we have makes us stronger storytellers, but they can only make us stronger if we choose to see them as one moment in our bigger story, the story where you're starring as a superhero. And if in that story you find your superpower leans more towards writing or drawing or some other part of creating, that's okay. I'm a person who is just a writer. If you made me enter a contest where I had to write and draw and letter and do my whole comic all by myself, I would fail so bad. I would absolutely just be crying right now because I wouldn't have been able to get through it. When I work on graphic novels, I work with a team of artists, colorists, letters, editors, a whole group of people. I don't have to do it alone. And as a storyteller, you can create your own superhero team, bringing together other creators, maybe some friends that you know, maybe some other people who entered this contest with you. They can be your teammates in your superhero storytelling team. And your story doesn't have to be graphic novels either. Maybe working on this contest submission, you decided that you don't want to make graphic novels and that's not for you. And that's totally okay. There are lots of avenues for your storytelling instincts and ways that you can fulfill that creative impulse. The same skills I use to write comics, I also use when I'm writing movies or animation or other types of entertainment. One thing you don't have to do is decide right now and stick with it forever. There are a lot of ways to use the skills you've been developing this summer. When I was a kid, I knew I wanted to be a writer, but I had no idea what sort of writing I would do. When I first went to college, I thought I would be a journalist and work at a newspaper. But when I started doing that, I realized that was very, very serious and not me at all. And then I discovered animation. So the world needs all kinds of writers. We have writers for video games, sitcoms, books, even reality TV shows have writers. There's writing all around us and someone has to be the person to write it. Think about restaurant menus. Do you have a way of describing a delicious cheesy biscuit that makes everyone want to order one? Then maybe you could be a copywriter. In my own experience, one writing job that I never even imagined was possible was writing for Disney on Ice. When I was a kid, I didn't know that Disney on Ice had writers. In fact, right up until the exact moment I got the job writing for Disney on Ice, I didn't know Disney on Ice had writers. And I guarantee you that there are all sorts of creative jobs out there that will exist when you grow up that aren't even imagined yet. So back to your experience today. I want to remind you that there are only a few people who judge this contest. And even though they may not have picked you as a winner here, that doesn't mean there aren't people out there who would read your work and it would be their absolute favorite. An amazing thing about our world is that there are all sorts of readers in it. Maybe your story isn't for robots, but it's something a shark would love. And who knows what Darth Vader's favorite book might be? Maybe it's the one you're going to write. So when you tell stories that are authentic, that you love telling, you'll find that there are others that will love them too. There are all different types of readers out there, and some of them are going to love exactly what you do. And with that said, no matter how lonely or strange or weird you feel, I know I felt very weird growing up. There are a lot of other people out there who are experiencing the same things. And when we use our superpower to tell and share our own stories, you'll find that that work connects you with more people than you would ever imagine. On that, I want to say, I know it's been a hard year. I know we would all much prefer to be together celebrating this day in the same room. But as creatives, we have this great power to be able to connect with each other through our stories. You can put your stories out there and connect with people so far away, people that you would never actually be able to meet in person. Now, we can write stories for robots or sharks or Darth Vaders, but one thing, the most important thing, is that you should be writing and creating for you. Not everyone has to go off and become a professional, storyteller or work in a creative industry. But whatever you choose to do, you have this power now to express yourself. You can use it as a coping mechanism. You can use it as a way to brighten your world. So I want to close by saying how proud and amazed I am by all of you and all of the submissions that I saw. The talent I saw was amazing. It just totally blew my mind. No matter what you take home today, whether if you win a big prize or you don't, whether you decide you want to be a writer, an artist, both, none of the above, there's no wrong path as long as you keep moving forward. Like June Moon here, all you need to do is believe in your super self and you can do anything. So thank you. You can find me at Shea Fontana wherever you are.
Yay.
Yay! Thank you, Shea. Thank you again
Yay.
for sharing your journey and reminding us all that creating is a kind of superpower that we all have the potential to unleash. And I think one of my favorite quotes of the day now is, "The world needs writers," and to remember that because it's absolutely true. Again, if anyone has questions for Shea, please stay tuned after our ceremony for the live Q&A. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute intermission. So please continue to enjoy cover art and first page images from some of our submissions this year, and get a glass of water or whatever, and we'll resume in 5 minutes, which will be at 2:52. Exactly. We'll see you in a few minutes. Thanks, everyone. Okay, we are back. Okay, now it is time to announce our teen winners, those who are 12 to 17 years of age. First, honorable mention goes to Chayla Benzen for the entry titled Discord. Yay!
Hello.
Yay!
All right, next honorable mention goes to Vince Brunert for the entry titled Like Us. Yay, Vince.
Yay!
Vince.
Okay, ready? Third place goes to Suzuka Kojima and Carissa Chow for the entry titled King Papal and the Charming Kingdom. Yay, girls.
Suzuka and Carissa. Woo!
Okay. Second place goes to Claire Lynn and Chandler Cook for the entry titled Investigation.
Yay!
Yay.
Claire, Chandler.
Okay, and first place goes to Natalie Walter for the entry titled Velcro Paws.
Yay!
Natalie. Woo!
Thank you to everyone who entered our teen category, and congratulations again to all the winners today.
Yay.
Okay, now it's time for our final guest speaker of the afternoon. Jean Ha is a New York Times bestselling comic book artist who has also won 4 Eisner Awards, the highest award in American comics. Jean is best known for his work with writer Alan Moore on Top 10 and its prequel, The 49ers. Jean is currently working on his own comic series titled May, the story of a girl who follows her long missing sister to a world of mad science and mystery. Please join me in welcoming Jean Ha. Hey.
Yay me.
Yay you.
Hello, everybody. Hold on a second. I'm going to share screen from a separate device, my iPad. So let's see, screen plus, start broadcast. Yes, share screen. Okay, so come on, you. So a bit like Shea, I have also been deep inside the world of the geekier side of comics, the Big Bang Theory, drawing superheroes, writing superheroes type of world, attending Comic-Cons in San Diego and all that type of stuff. And I'm not going to focus so much on how I started in comics, which everyone else has covered beautifully. I also came from a small town and did not start drawing comics, finishing a comic, unlike all of you, until I was about 21 or 22. But I want to talk about how I broke in and how a few other very important people in the history of comics broke in after me. In my era, which in the 90s was pre-internet relay for the public, you used to just take a packet of photocopies and you would mail them to a comic book company, which back then was mostly Marvel and DC Comics. The guys who do, Marvel does DC, of course, the Avengers and Spider-Man and all that, and DC does, one of the sponsors of this contest, do Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman. And this lets me also show you my first rejection letter from DC Comics, or from Marvel Comics, which is a checklist of everything you can get wrong. And you can see that they made a list of everything they could think of at the time before I sent my submission. That could get wrong, and if they didn't check it off or exit off, they underlined it, except for storytelling, which frankly they probably should have checked off too. And then they needed a little bit of extra room at the bottom to explain all the other mistakes they made that they had not thought of when they created the checklist. So I'll say that eventually I got lucky that someone at DC Comics, Neil Posner, the late Neil Posner, got the same submission packet I sent to Marvel and liked the work, but not enough to hire me. So essentially, he didn't say this literally this way, but he said, pretty much, you're not good enough to work for DC Comics either, but I'd like to see more work. And if you can find someone who will help you and mentor you through the process of getting better, this is a huge advantage in life. And I was really lucky to find somebody like that. In a few years, I was doing work for both companies, Marvel and DC. At the time, it was pre-digital mostly for artwork. So I was working with pen and ink, and I was doing a crosshatch style, which is kind of like what you see on a dollar bill. Though this was really, really rough on the eyes and hands and back, just leaning in and drawing very, very tightly. So I started moving into other directions with my creative work and began working on color too, so I wouldn't have to do the tiny, scritchy little hatch lines. This is me when I finally got a hold of Photoshop to do my own coloring, and this is colors on a black and white drawing. I got to do other characters like various versions of Superman. This is the Superman of Earth 23, who is also the president of that world. Batman. And eventually I also got to work with one of my childhood heroes. I mostly worked as an artist in my career. And the writer on this book was Alan Moore, who wrote Watchmen, V for Vendetta, a lot of other stories you've probably heard of. And this is our story, Top 10, which is about a world city where almost everyone is a superhero and all of the cops are superheroes. And eventually, I got to do my own book, which was mentioned by the librarians. This is May, which is about two sisters who go off and have adventures in a fantasy world. And they start off in a world a lot like ours. And in fact, in Indiana, where I grew up, basing little things on my own experiences and writing from what I knew once I started writing my own comics. But then the older sister, who's having adventures longer, takes her younger sister, May, who's the older sister, Abby, in the red hat, takes her younger sister, May, on adventures in another world called Cimiteren, where things are very different than Indiana or California. But but the way I broke in is not how you break in now. You don't take packets of black and white photocopies anymore and just mail them in. So I'm going to show you how some other people broke in. If you read a lot of graphic novels and comics, I'm pretty sure they have this in the collection there at San Jose, and you recognize this. This comic started off as also in the geek world that I started off in, the comic shop world, the Big Bang Theory world, the San Diego Comic-Con world. But eventually it turned into a color graphic novel, which you may recognize as Bone. And this was just, Jeff Smith started off as an animator who just really wanted to do his dream project. He wasn't going to make as much money in comics starting off as he did doing his day job, but he had a story he really, really wanted to tell. And it did okay inside of comic shops, but it didn't hit it really big until people like librarians and bookstore owners and publishers noticed it, and kids. This is really important. Kids noticed the book Bone instead of 30-year-old and 40-year-old men in comic shops. And that's how he's really got his big break. And that's how it got collected into this beautiful edition here that you're seeing on the screen. Now that was around 1991 that he started doing his Bone comic for comic shops. Around the next big event that changed how you break into comics was this webcomic. And a few of you might recognize it. It was a little black and white webcomic that came out around 2007. And it was just posted online for free. And people liked it. And the creator of this comic just had a story she really, really wanted to tell. And eventually it got published. And at the time, there was not such a thing as, there wasn't really a big original kids market for graphic novels until this book came out called Smile by Raina Telgemeier. And it changed everything. And suddenly it went from the way you broke into comics was publishing a comic through a big comic book company and selling it through comic shops, to going through a book publisher and selling it to kids through bookstores and schools and other things like that. And just by posting this comic, this memoir comic about losing her breaking some of her teeth, and just having the story that she had no idea who was going to buy it or who would want to read it, but she had to tell this story. it changed how we read comics today in America. It changed the whole American comics market. Most comics today, well, most comics when I started, almost all comics, were sold through comic shops. And nowadays, most comics and graphic novels are sold through scholastic book fairs and bookstores and distributed through libraries. She changed everything by putting out that webcomic. Not quite as groundbreaking, but just another example of somebody else who did something they really believed in. An art student had a graduate project in her senior year of college of doing a comic, or what she did as a comic. And because she was drawing these pages anyway, she decided to post them online. And it was just this goofy comic about a shape-changing teenage girl who decides she's going to be the minion and sidekick of a famous mad scientist. And it started off just very jokey and silly at first. But as it went along, she began exploring the characters and building it deeper and getting more sophisticated with the art. And it became this incredibly powerful work. It attracted a huge amount of fans online. And eventually, it was all collected together into a graphic novel for publication called Nimona, which was a finalist for the National Book Award. And she still does brilliant comics work, Noelle Stevenson. But she is also now known, like Shea, she has followed her writing career from comics into TV. And she is now the showrunner for the new She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. A totally different look and kind of strip, XKCD. This still remains one of the geekiest comics in the world. The name was chosen because the artist and writer wanted to come up with a name that you can't pronounce, or you can't just shorten it to a single word to pronounce. And this is the first strip, in which he, very simple, very doodly, and he did not get more detailed. He did not become more rendered or complex or realistic to get better. He got simpler. And the way he found his success is by telling these comics, these very, very dorky, academic, geeky ideas that he had, and doing it simply. He again, kind of changed comics. And I have a lot of people who tell me that they can only draw stick figures. They can't draw comics. They can only draw stick figures. And the way this creator, oh God, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name right now because he doesn't post it on his website and I don't have it on here. But the way he became successful is by drawing less realistically and drawing more stick figures. And he's gotten really good at it. He's really good at explaining ideas with stick figures. Again, he started on the internet. This is just, it remains a free webcomic he does. But it's also been turned into a series of books to explain very complex ideas. Randall Munroe, there we go. And he's been interviewed on national news programs, on TV and radio and internationally, explaining science in simplifying it in a way, but not dumbing it down. And it's just really brilliant work. And you may notice there's kind of a theme here that a lot of these people are doing things where they have no idea who's going to read it, who's going to buy it, if anyone's going to want to publish it, or if there's going to be any fan base. But they're just doing what they believe. They're doing what they love. And they're doing it for themselves. They're doing their own ideas. Now, I have made most of my career drawing the IP, the internet property, the copyrighted characters and trademark characters for big companies. But the way that most of these people have made their mark is by doing their own things. Now I'm going to show you someone who's taught me this. This page slide up right now is somebody who at the present moment is about 16 years old. And he's actually taught me a lot. And he's not a big published artist yet. But I just want to show you his course. When he was about 8 years old, he posted his first drawing on Instagram. His name is Ethan Castillo. And when he was about 10 years old, I met him at a comic book convention and he asked me for advice. So he just came up to me in Artist Alley like you saw in that first photo, just me at my Artist Alley table. And I just explained as many ideas as I could and answered all his questions on how comics work, how to draw things, how publishing works. And he kept practicing. Actually, he and his parents met me at the I can't remember the name of it, the aquarium inside of near Los Angeles and near Long Beach. But anyway, they saw me there after the comic convention and asked me some more questions. And he just had great questions about how do you break in? How do you do things? But I'm not the only one he was talking to. And around that time, he began going to his first comic conventions himself and getting his own table. Once we actually have comic conventions again, you can do this too. And selling his artwork. And he met others of his heroes, frankly, bigger heroes and bigger names than me, and asking them questions and hanging out with them and giving them artwork. And he kept working at it. And he began going to bigger comic conventions. And he's kept on practicing. And I just want to show you something here, which is that I'm mainly a print guy. I'm not mainly an internet guy. But his Instagram has about 6 times as many followers as mine does right now. And he's 16 years old. And he's learning without a lot of formal teachers, how to just get better and better. Now, Randall Monroe, who does XKCD, shows you don't have to be realistic to be successful. But you can keep on just getting better and better and learning more stuff. And by just posting what he believes in and what he loves, he's starting to build his fan base of other people who think like him. And I'm going to say that there's a secret to all this, which is simply that you may not get rich. You don't go into the arts planning to get rich. But if you really have a story that you want to get out there, or you have many stories, here's the way to figure out if it's something that's really, really worth doing. Look for the story or the idea in your heart that you wish you could buy but you can't buy. That's not out there yet. And if you can't find it, try to be the person who makes it. And even if there's not a giant audience for it, like most of these people have found, you'll have found something, you'll have made something for yourself that you really want that you couldn't get otherwise. But if you're lucky, there's going to be a lot of people out there who also will discover they really wanted this thing. And that's how you get the really knock it out of the ballpark home run ideas, by taking a risk on something where you really want it, but it's not out there yet. And it can be just a little different than everything else, but it has to be that thing where you just can't get it the way you want it. Now, I want to finish this off by making all of you an offer. And this is an offer I give to everyone, but this is especially for all of you. Now, if you go to my website, geneha.com, there's a contact page. So you can see up here on the top of every page, there's a little thing where it says contact. Click that. And if you need any advice on comics or art or publishing or anything like that, the same way Ethan Castillo came up to me, include inside the subject line, San Jose. Remind me that you are listening or watching this panel. And I will do even a little more effort than I do everybody else who asks me questions through my website to help you out and give you advice, or just confer and complain about the world with you, or just, just do my best to help you find your way that others helped me. The way that Neil Posner at DC reached out and gave me advice and helped me become a better artist and a better storyteller. And there's so many people throughout my career who've done this. And if you need that help, feel free to reach out to me. So that's the end of my presentation, and everything else I will handle through the Q&A. So thanks for attending, and thank you so much. I shouldn't say thank you, but congratulations on being so awesome that you made completed stories and submitted them, which again, I didn't do until I was in my 20s. So we are all very impressed.
Yay. Thank you, Gene. Thank you so much for joining us today again, and also for sharing your experiences and talking about how to break into comics. And as a final reminder to everyone, Gene, Chad, and Shea will all be participating in a live Q&A in just a few minutes. But first, our final age group of winners. It's time to announce the adults. First, honorable mention goes to Isla Miles for the entry titled Scotsman's Penny. Yay, Isla.
Isla!
Third place goes to Jacques Manhares for the entry titled American Jew.
Jacques.
Now, second place goes to Gilbert Armendariz for the entry titled The Hungry Hound.
Gilbert.
And finally, first place in the adult category goes to Elise Fan for the entry titled Lumiere. Great job, Louis.
Please.
So thanks again to everyone who entered in this category, and congratulations to our winners. Big virtual round of applause. Yay! All right, I want to thank everyone for attending our first virtual graphic novel making contest award ceremony, and to all our program hosts, sponsors, judges, and to our special guests, Chad Sell, Shannon Wright, Shea Fontana, and Jean Ha. And before we start our Q&A session, I have some final announcements, which are repeats, but some folks might have missed at the beginning. A curation of all the submissions will be available online through BiblioBoard starting Monday, August 24th. There, you'll be able to read this year's submissions, as well as a special section for all the winners and the honorable mentions. Participants and winners, please remember to pick up your prizes starting on Wednesday, August 26th at the express pickup location that you chose. Please keep an eye out for more graphic novel programs and activities coming later this year by going to sjpl.org/graphic novels. And once again, congratulations to everyone who has won a prize today, and thank you all for joining us. This is always one of my absolute favorite events of every year, and I get to be in a lot of awesome events at the San Jose Public Library. And I hope you all enjoyed the insightful and talented speakers that we had this year as much as I did. We look forward to seeing you again next year, and our Q&A session will start in just a moment, so I hope you can join us. Kyle Burkett, who is the graphic novel making contest chair, so the chair of the team, will be moderating our questions. So Kyle, please take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you.
Kyle.
How's it going, everybody? Thank you so much to all of our speakers. Thank you so much for sticking around. We really appreciate it. With everything going on, I just want to say it's so nice to be able to directly connect with the participants of this contest and give them something, you know, to celebrate during this time. I think we all can use a little bit of that. So thank you very much for all of your efforts here today. So I don't want to take too much time, just kind of rambling on. So I'm just going to jump right into the Q&A.
I'm going to dip out. I'm sorry I have to leave, everyone, but this was amazing. You can reach out to me on my website too. But yeah, this was great. Keep making comics. Like I said, I didn't even know I could make comics. So nice talking to everyone. Bye.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shannon.
Bye, Shannon.
Have yourself a great day. Okay, so for our panelists, the first question that I'm going to throw out to you all is, so currently, is there any comic, graphic novel, any piece of art that you are inspired by? So this comes from one of our anonymous attendees.
Oh, man.
Feel free to jump in.
I'm going to jump in with just something that's, again, it's a webcomic. I'm always amazed by how many new webcomics are coming out. And Nothing Special by Katie Cook, who started off doing some very personal work, doing a lot of fan work, or actually hired work for Star Wars and Marvel and DC, but then did something where she just took everything she loved and did a story about two a really grumpy teenager who finds out that she has magical abilities and goes off to a magical world, that finds out that her mom is a murderous tree, and she just takes all the things she passionately loves and jams them in there. It's so weird, And if you love it, you will really love it. And if you don't like it, it will be incomprehensible. But check it out. It's on Line Webtoon. It's just one of my favorite things right now. And it's so different from everything I do, which is part of the reason I love it.
That sounds fabulous.
I had to exit to get my prop. So this book is Brazen by Penelope Baggio. And it's actually short stories of real life women who have changed the world. And it's beautifully done and just such amazing stories. I, nearly cry every time I open it up and read one.
One of my favorite recent graphic novels is Kat Leigh's Snapdragon. It's from the publisher First Second, and it's a really wonderful either middle grade or YA story about an unusual kind of magic in the South. And it's a very kind of layered and historical story involving lots of queer characters and gender nonconforming characters. I was just really impressed by it.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you all for that. And I'm sure that people will go check those out. I'm sure we have them at the library, so please take a look at our catalog. So next question from one of our attendees. So this is really broad. So where do you get your inspiration from?
I think that what Jean said about kind of making what you wish that you could go out and buy at the bookstore is really smart. For me, I talked about how certain characters I would just draw year after year in my sketchbook, and they would kind of grow and change. And for me, I often would like look and think, what is it about this character that I find so compelling that I can't get rid of? And that helps clarify what draws me to that character or to that story or to that world that I've created, and hopefully what others will be drawn into.
Excellent.
For me, it's just really, broadly having more experiences gives you more things to draw from that you can write or create stories about. One thing for when I was writing Batman Overdrive, I actually did a car racing workshop. So I wouldn't have known any of that stuff to be able to put it in that book and know about those sort of specific car racing things if I hadn't have done that. So I think it's just really having all the experiences you can, reading as much as you can. The more you read, the better writer or artist you will be.
Nice.
Let me kind of expand. I love Chad's and Shea's answer, and I'm just going to kind of expand on that. And a little bit on what I was saying before, which is look for the story that hasn't been told. So Chad, for instance, talked about how the story he loves recently is from a story that tells stories about people of color and the LGBTQ community. The stories that have not been overtold yet, where they need to be told. Shea mentioned a lot of her early comics work is actually for superhero girls, DC superhero girls, which I mentioned that when I started in comics, it was you bought comics in comic shops and almost everyone else there was a 30 or 40-year-old man. And she took these superheroes that everybody of every age loves and said, why don't we actually make some of these stories for kids too and let them show why these characters, show them why they're so awesome, and also adults, how a story told for a kid can be great for adults to read too. And just look for the story that's not been told. When I began doing May, I mean, frankly, I was kind of disappointed in how I had a lot of friends who were female geeks, a lot of comic geeks, some academic geeks and stuff like that, who seemed very heroic to me, but it was really hard for me to find pop culture female geek main characters who were heroes. They were almost always sidekicks who were the ones on the headphones on the side saying, go down that hallway, now pull the red wire, now pull the lever, while the actual hero actually did stuff. Or else they were, and this is the one that really, really annoyed the heck out of me. They were the ones who were told, oh my God, now they've got your glasses off, you're not really a geek, you're beautiful. And then the geek girl goes, oh, thank God I'm beautiful and I'm not a geek anymore. Now I don't have to act like a geek anymore, I can actually have fun. And it's kind of like, no, I want to have a geek hero who actually is a hero because she's a geek. So, just look for the story that's not being told right now, that's in your heart, and tell it. And also, I'm not a geek girl. So, I did my research. I talked to my friends who I thought were really awesome female geeks and got their stories and told some of the story through my comic book.
That's great. I can't help thinking about, like, Oracle, in the Batman series where she's just sort of relegated to the sideline, and then, a new voice like that, giving people that platform, I think is pretty amazing. We've had a few questions on here. So how do you all make digital art? Is there an app, software, drawing pad? How did you make the transition, if you did, from just drawing on a pad and paper to doing it digitally?
It looks like Jean is going to grab some equipment. I work all digitally for the most part. I love this program called Clip Studio Paint, and that's available on computers, on most tablets. And it allows me to work on a whole book at the same time, like look at all of the pages at once and take out pages and reorder them and do all kinds of great things, and even letter and color them. And what I like is that it's available in like a cheap format and then also a more premium expensive one. So hopefully it might be a valid way of experimenting. I think they might even have a free trial as well. So I highly recommend that, Clip Studio Paint.
Awesome. Did anybody else want to jump in?
Jean, you're muted.
Unmute. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I started off, like I said, working in the pre-digital paper era. These are in plastic sleeves, but they're actually on paper. So you can see the black and white work I was doing back then, including, this is like the height of my crosshatch style, which is brutal, brutal, brutal on your wrists and your eyes. But yeah, I am working digitally now too. And let's see if I can share screen. I am doing most of my digital work. Hold on a second. Share content, screen, start broadcast. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I really love working digitally because I don't have to scan things. I don't, especially for color work, that's really hard. I don't have to buy paints. And it allows me to do things in layers in a way that allows me to kind of play with it. So you can see how this is constructed here. Starts off with a rough. And I do a very doodly sketch. And this is the current project I'm doing for DC. It's not announced yet. If you're really clever, you might be able to figure out what it is. And then I kind of do the whole thing inside of a lighter value, and then get darker, add details. And it just allows me to do things in a painterly fashion that just was kind of impossible back in the, this page is killing me, I can't do anything more in finer detail. So yeah, I love digital. And again, I'm working in Procreate on the iPad Pro, but it also works on anything, any iPad with that works with a pencil, which is getting cheaper and cheaper, especially if you get the used ones.
Awesome, thank you. Let's see. Generally speaking, what there's a lot of people asking about if this will be replayed. So I just want to go ahead and answer that. Yeah, we will have this up on the library's website, on the YouTube channel, and we will replay it for anybody that may have missed part of the ceremony. So what do you think, this is from one of our attendees, what do you think makes a story good and enjoyable and, quote, winning, is what they are saying?
For me, I love a story with heart to it, that isn't just like funny or clever, but that really shows the character going through something where you relate to the character. And even if they don't ultimately win in the way that they thought they would, that they like learned something or developed or grew or made some sort of valuable relationship along the way.
Yeah, I think for me, it's when a story is really honest and portrays an honest sort of emotion or arc or character in a way that maybe we haven't seen before. If there's something new, a new area of that character we're exploring, a new obstacle for that character, I think that's always what makes a really compelling story for me.
I'd like to play, expanding on their stuff, I'd like to play on the idea of suspense, which is, I mean, a lot of times we think of that as like, oh no, someone with a knife or a hammer is creeping up on the hero. But it's really a question of the hero possibly getting something, having something good happen, or something really losing something they really care about. And it has to be something that the reader cares that they're going to lose. And that builds suspense. This question of what happens next, and will this horrible thing I imagine happen? That's what really draws you in and turns into a page turner. And the thing is, clever writers will not necessarily, well, the clever writers will put an image in your head of something horrible that could happen. But sometimes the horrible thing that happens or the good thing that happens are not the ones they put in your head earlier. And it's a total twist of like what happens next. But it's a matter of making the readers care about what happens to the main character and the supporting characters, and then possibly losing something incredibly valuable. It doesn't have to be their lives. It doesn't have to be, fights or injuries. It could just be losing the respect or love of somebody they really care about, or of some type of future they're working for that they just lose the possibility of ever actually becoming who they want to become. And you just build suspense that way. And when it's something that the reader can really relate to, something that's really honest, then the reader will really, really be drawn in if they don't feel like they know the answer already.
Oh, that's fabulous. Thank you. Thank you all for the answers there. So this question is from one of our attendees as well. So it says, how did you go about defining your cartooning style or your voice? Do you feel like you found your voice? How do you feel you get to that point?
I think that a lot of young artists struggle with this, and they worry a lot about finding like their one style. But actually, I find that for me, I have different styles to suit different projects. I draw, for kids' books differently than I draw other illustration work. And one thing that I found really helpful in kind of figuring out what works for me is how do I draw when I'm trying to draw really quickly? When I'm just trying to like really quickly and efficiently sketch out an idea, what do I prioritize? What detail is necessary to convey my idea? And what is just kind of fancy window dressing to impress someone that I want to think I'm a better artist than I am. And so for me, it's a lot about taking away and trying to do more with less. What I love about cartooning is that it's about simplifying and exaggerating. Like I think of like a classic Disney cartoon or Looney Tunes, cartoons. Like I love that they aren't trying to be remotely realistic. It's more about like a heightened, intense, stylized view of reality.
Let me just say that most of what I was going to say is pretty much what Chad said, which is what makes a great artist is not just the things you put in, but very importantly, the things you leave out. If you look at like the great 20th century abstract artists, a lot of it is just they simplified things. They took things out. They took out three-dimensionality sometimes and just made it, Picasso made everything look flat. And just those Picasso paintings were big inspirations for the Looney Tune cartoons he was talking about. I am a person who's really, really good at photographic realism. But one of my heroes are people like Darwin Cook, who just simplified everything. He died a few years ago, but just kept it very, very simple. And I am just dying to hear how this theory of style is what you leave out is answered by somebody who works with words named Shea.
It's really interesting. I think as a writer, I never specifically found myself looking for my own voice. I think that came fairly naturally. But I will say, as a working writer, especially in TV and in IP comics, you don't necessarily always want your own voice coming through. So in a lot of TV shows, part of the kind of craft in being a great writer in those shows is being able to match someone else's voice. So there is like, if you are writing on a writing staff for a TV show, you want to make sure that every episode is consistent episode to episode. So then the skill becomes being able to match a different voice that isn't your own. So probably most writers go towards a lot of, content or jobs that are similar to their own voices. But one skill that I think we don't really talk about a lot when we're doing original content is the ability to match someone else's voice, which when I'm hiring writers, I always like to make sure that they have a spec script for a existing show that shows that they can show up in a room and be able to match the same sort of tone and jokes and writing style of whoever they're writing with. So I think, from a writing side, it's fairly natural, and, whatever you are putting in is a lot of times what's coming out, but what comes out is you. So there was one quote I heard once of, an art teacher, a kid was like, I don't know what my style is. I don't know what my style is. And he said, okay, go paint this Van Gogh or whatever it was. And when you come back, wherever the differences are is your style. So if you're trying to replicate something and those differences are where you really start to lean into to find your own voice and your own style. But I think, a way that some writers really are successful is that they are able to mimic other voices. And that's a completely valid career path as well.
Oh, Shea, can I ask you a follow-up question?
Absolutely.
Okay. There's this famous quote from musician Brian Eno, where he was asked by a reporter, aren't you, he's a very artsy musician. So he was asked by the reporter, aren't you ever afraid of being pretentious? And Brian Eno said, why would I be afraid of being pretentious? Pretending is how we actually become something in the future. And in a way, you're talking about learning, pretending, following someone else's things. And in a way, also, you're talking about the way to be a good writer is reading and listening. And I'm just kind of curious if you can follow up a little more on that.
Yeah, I think, it is whatever you're bringing in is just expanding what you can take out in the world. So the more you read, the more you listen, the more you take in through, music or entertainment. I always, when I meet young writers, I suggest they take in all sorts of kinds of entertainment because you can be inspired, and that remix that happens inside you and what comes out is then your own voice.
That's great. So just kind of following up on that, so we have a question. How do you give an authentic voice to characters that are not like you? And then also, what is it like for those of you who have done this? You're writing for a character that might be like an iconic character versus something you've created. Like, how do you approach those different things, and like, how do you feel about it? What's the differences from your creative perspective? Sorry, that's a big question, but.
On the writing for characters that already exist, especially in things like DC superhero girls, when we are writing for them at a different point in time in their life and in a different universe context, a big thing was just kind of distilling down those characters to their core DNA. And like thinking, what are the top 5 traits of Wonder Woman? Wonder Woman's interested in justice. That's what she really cares about. And trying to understand how those traits are portrayed in a character that is 16 years old as opposed to a grown woman. So I think that's really the big thing with going for characters that are existing. And it's, trying to distill down, why do people love these characters? Why have people loved Wonder Woman for almost 80 years now? And really leaning into that and trying to understand that inspiration. And as far as writing characters that aren't like you, I think that's just a ton of fun. I think getting into a character that is completely different than you and trying to empathize and understand where that character is coming from, especially supervillains. I mean, supervillains are some of the most fun characters to write. And I often feel like a supervillain myself when I'm writing, because I spend all day thinking up ways that I can hurt or harm or trap, these superheroes that I'm writing. So it is really fun to get into those supervillain characters. And it is having that moment of empathy with them. Like, why are they doing this? Where can you understand where they're coming from? And then just letting your imagination go wild and grow from there.
Did anybody else want to chime in on that?
I think it's so tricky you always try to find some link of commonality, some shared experience between yourself and the character that you're writing, and to find some empathy with them. But then also you do want to show a breadth of experience in the characters that you're creating. For Doodleville, a lot of the art club characters are based on friends of mine or people I've known over the years who I thought were really interesting and would bring kind of a different perspective on art making and on the problems that show up in the book.
I think a really important thing for me is just when we talk about empathy also, it's not just empathy with the fictional characters in your world, it's empathy with the real people around you. And oftentimes people you haven't met. Talking to people, if you're writing somebody who's not like you at all, if you can actually find somebody who is that, or multiple people, especially if they're friends of yours already, you can ask them and just learn about their lives. And this isn't just a project you do because you're writing about them, but just if you're really interested in people and are constantly interested in what they're doing. This is actually a commonality I find in almost all the really great writers I know in person, is they're actually interested in finding out about people because they've learned how interesting people are inside by being inside their heads so many hours of the day. I wrote a scene inside of a county jail. So I've only been arrested once and I wasn't charged, but I haven't spent a lot of time in jails, but I did go to a county jail and talk to the people who work there and find out about what they were trying to get done right when they're doing it right.
That's great, thank you. So this one's specifically for Chad. So how often did you go to the art museum when you were working on Doodleville? And how often do you find inspiration from art history? And then just generally to everyone, like what other sorts of source material do you typically draw from in terms of literature, like, whatever it might be. So I'll just throw that out there.
Yeah, I set Doodleville in Chicago where I live and in my neighborhood. And I had never done that before, I don't think. And I'm someone who goes on walks every day around my neighborhood, and I just enjoy looking at what people have in their yard and their gardens. Like, I just love like the sights of everyday life. And I was so happy that I set the book in my everyday life because you just never know what will inspire you. And once I decided it would be set in Chicago, that's when I was like, oh, well, obviously they need to go to the Art Institute of Chicago, which is this like world-class art museum. And then that led to all kinds of ideas, a lot of times it's so great to kind of discover new things that you wouldn't have expected. Like if we're in Chicago, then this will happen, and then this will happen. I tie in the L train, which is like the subway in Chicago, into the end of Doodleville Book One. And I love visiting the Art Institute of Chicago. I love looking around and coming up with, what would my doodles do in that painting? Like it's fun to look at the world with fresh eyes using your creativity. Whether it's what would my character do in this situation? How would my character react to that sculpture, or to that painting, or to this kind of thing going on? It's been really sad. I haven't gone to the Art Institute probably all year, but I'm working on Doodleville Book 2 right now, and a lot of it takes place in the Art Institute of Chicago. And I'm really hoping I can go back soon, because what I have been doing is that luckily there is Google Street View inside a lot of the Art Institute of Chicago. So I spend so much time just like doing these like 360 panoramas, like looking at different angles for reference.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Does anybody else want to chime on that one?
I watch so much TV. My research. So kids, if you're listening, Shea Fontana just said that watching a lot of TV is important for being a writer, if you want to be a TV writer. So yeah, I do. I watch all sorts of TV. I do read a ton as well. I read a lot of novels and graphic novels, of course. But yeah, I just take in as much content as I can. I think there's no better way for starting to understand the rhythms. When I started writing graphic novels, my first DC Superhero Girls was the first graphic novel or comic book that I ever even tried to write. So the editors at DC were just like, all right, just start. They sent me a bunch of scripts for comic books that I could look at. And I just went back and forth and was like, all right, this is what it says on the page. this is what it looks like when it's finished. And something I still do now, every time I am reading through a comic book, I count how many panels are on the page. And just like have automatically like, okay, this is the pacing. This is how I'm looking at this one. It has 5 panels. This one's a splash page. And you just start to understand the craft that goes into those rhythms of a graphic novel or a TV show. And I think just experiencing them from the viewer or audience perspective or the reader perspective is really, you know, integral to getting your inspiration and understanding how it works.
Fabulous.
I'm going to say that, I mean, studying the stories you love, studying whether it's on a TV show or a comic book or a movie or something like that, is a great way to understand how to do stories and just taking in more and more and more. But one of the things I've also found in my life is that everything I find interesting can become part of the story world that you're building. And in my case, every class I took except for what's that? The math that Newton came up with in Leibniz. Everything except for calculus, I have been able to use inside of a comic book, including trigonometry. So I showed you this scene earlier during my slide presentation. And I'm going to show you now the print version of it, which is, well, it's a 90s comic, so it's kind of muddy colors. But the trick about this page is that it's what's called a panopticon. And if you curl it, you're going to have to buy a copy or track down a copy to actually do this. But if you get a print copy and wrap around your head and look like this through it, it forms a 360-degree view, or and the perspective. If you look at it now, all the lines are curvy instead of being straight lines with perspective. But if you curve it and wrap it around your head like this, and curve it like that, that's how the real world looks to your two eyes when it's wrapped around, and creates kind of a actually a 180 view, but a wraparound view of your head, where if you curve it, the curved lines look straight. And I calculated that using trigonometry on paper, because it was before I owned a PC.
Thank you very much. So Shea, this one's specifically for you. So have you ever written a restaurant menu before?
I have not personally, but Lisa Yee, who was the writer of the DC Superhero Girls novels, she got her start writing Red Lobster restaurant menus, which is why I had that in my presentation. Yeah, so she was a copywriter, and her thing was writing about cheesy biscuits. So I have not personally written a restaurant menu, but it is a career path that can lead to being a novel writer.
Awesome. So as a writer too, just to follow up with this, like, how do you go about finding artists that you want to work with? Like, what's the process like, and how do you settle upon, you know, like, oh, this art really works with whatever I'm doing? Or
in my experience, generally that is the job of the editor. So I don't have to worry about that as much. Usually an editor might ask if there is an artist that I want to work with or someone who I was thinking of for a project. But when I'm brought on to a story, especially with like DC Comics, the editor is the one that's kind of rearranging all of that. There is, however, if you co-create a project with someone, you usually do that with someone you've worked with before and someone who you really love their work. And I'm currently doing that. So there is an artist that I'm working with that we got together in the beginning to co-create a project and are making that book.
nice. And then I just want to flip that around and pass it out to Jean and Chad. You know, so as from your perspective, how do you go about finding your collaborators, whether they're writers, whether they're illustrators, and you know, how do you form a like a good partnership with those people?
It's tricky. With Cardboard Kingdom, I had this idea for a book where each chapter would follow a different kid who in the same neighborhood, as they all have overlapping adventures. And the idea was that a different writer would write the story of each of those different kids. And that was kind of a really weird idea that I hadn't seen anyone do before. So the fact that it was new and weird, there was no like clear path of how to do that and how to find writers who were interested. So I had an internet contest for several months where anyone could send in their idea. And I promoted it at comic conventions and online wherever I could. And that's how I found a team of 10 writers that I made this book with. I think some of the crucial things about collaboration are that you try to be as communicative and upfront as possible about what you know and don't know, what you want and don't want about a project. With Cardboard Kingdom, I told them, I have no idea if this will ever get published or if any of us will make $1 from it. But the one thing I can guarantee you is that if I select your story, I will draw it. And maybe we'll release it online for free, or maybe it'll become our first book. And I think because we all had the same understanding and expectations going into it, we've been able to work for years together now.
That's great.
I'm just going to repeat a little bit of what I had very similar experiences to Shea, where I started off working with a lot of editors on corporate IP, so a lot of famous superheroes, and I would be assigned a writer. Though as time went by, again, I was like her, I was asked if there's someone I wanted to work with. And I got to work with a lot of the people who were my, when I was a teenager, were my creative idols from comics. So people like Alan Moore, Archie Goodwin, Bill Willingham, a bunch of people like that, which is really, really fabulous and exciting. And I learned so much from so many, from all of them, especially Archie Goodwin. Man, he had to really hold my hand to teach me how comic book storytelling worked. But also, when I talk about reaching out to people who have had experiences that are different than yours to write them, at one point on my book, May, I based one of my characters on a good friend of mine, again, a geek girl. So she, Molly Jane Kramer, who's an adult. She's not actually a kid girl. And so visually based on her, but I found out that like the character, she went to Purdue University in reality. And I had a story where the character based on her visually was having these experiences at Purdue of being a geek girl there and having some geek guys not appreciate her and kind of looking down on her and being kind of creepy. And it turned out she in real life had these experiences. And at a certain point, as I was transcribing her, describing her actual life to me and experiences to me and mechanics of how socially, how all of this stuff works, I realized she was kind of writing a script almost. And that's how she ended up writing a chapter of my graphic novel, May. So yeah, she's credited with that. And I just took her real life experiences and her stories and her ideas and translated it into a script, which we went back and forth. But it's her story, it's her writing. It's just me formatting it like an editor into something I could draw.
As a quick follow-up on that, I will say that comics and graphic novels are one of the most incredibly collaborative pieces of writing that you could do. You really have to approach the process thinking of everyone on your team as an equal storyteller and important to the story process. One of the things that until I was working on comics that I didn't really realize is how important letterers are in telling the story as well. The placement of a balloon just can completely change how you see and are interpreting how the story goes. So it is incredibly collaborative. And when you get to work with great people, it is just the best feeling in the world. When you get a page back and you're like, this is so much better than what I ever imagined. Everybody takes the story and just uses their own creativity and their own skills to improve it every step of the way.
That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, so this one is for everyone. So do you think it's harder or easier to break into the industry today versus when you all started out? And then sort of a sub follow-up question. This is from someone who's never attended a comic convention before. So what advice do you have for talking to other artists and looking for collaborators? Would anybody like to jump in?
I think that the idea of breaking in is really complicated because there is, Gene, gave that vivid example of like sending in stuff to Marvel and getting this like form letter rejection. But there really aren't as clear gatekeepers anymore. Since anyone can post stuff online, you can amass tens of thousands of followers on Instagram, but maybe no editor wants to work with you or doesn't know about you yet. So I think that for better or worse, there are all kinds of ways to become known, to share your work, and to even make money at your work that can just be entirely on social media. I made a living for like more than 5 years entirely just by running an Etsy shop and having Patreon, a Patreon campaign. And that's what helped me finally develop the skills and develop a pitch for Cardboard Kingdom, which has then started my graphic novel career. So I think it's breaking in at this point is just a really multifaceted thing, and everyone kind of does it differently in a different form.
Yeah, I'm going to mention that I first met Chad because I decided, as a relative, I'm 51 years old, so as an old fogey in comics, I wanted to find out how the younger folks were doing things differently than I was. And I've been going to comic conventions for over 20 years, but I didn't actually wander through and see how people are doing things. So I just took a year off from C2E2 in Chicago, wandered through the aisles and interviewed and did a blog post article about the best artist alley tables I saw. And Chad's was one of the best, full of just beautiful displays, beautifully set up, totally inviting. And much like Ethan Castillo, who I mentioned, he wasn't a big name, but he was selling an artist alley and doing a brilliant job of it. If you have to pay a fee to get it at most comic conventions when they open again, to have a table, but if you're willing to take that risk, maybe split it with a friend, you can be an artist in Artist Alley, like Chad Sell started off, or Ethan Castillo started doing when he was 10 years old. And also, like Chad said, do things online and don't try to copy someone else and just be the second. Do not try to be the second best Chad Sell in the world. You're never going to be the best Chad Sell in the world. And by trying to be the second best, you're not probably going to end up being the 10th best, and you're not going to be the best you can be. Look for the idea that's in you that hasn't been told yet, and that you really want to get. And that's how you're going to get your internet following. It may not be huge, but you're going to be a lot more successful having a small, passionate following than having a gigantic following who just kind of likes your stuff, but doesn't follow it passionately and doesn't want to donate any money to your Patreon or buy your books. They just want to browse it once in a while online. Just do something you're passionate about, and then find at least a few people who are passionate about it also online.
Just adding on to all of that, right now in the world, there are more graphic novels and a more variety of graphic novels being published than any time I ever knew. So nearly now, every major publisher has a graphic novel division, which wasn't even happening 5 or 10 years ago. So there is just a huge appetite for graphic novels right now. I can't speak to whether it's easier or not to break in than it had been, but yeah, there's definitely so many graphic novels being published, and just different kinds of graphic novels than were being published. Like in the 90s, it was very much, before it was very dominated by superheroes. And now superheroes are several tiers down the list when you're looking at the top 10 graphic novels. So it's really incredible to see how things have shifted and opened up to different kinds of creators.
Thank you all for your answers there. So we have just about 4 minutes left for our program. So I'm just going to go ahead and generally give you the floor. If there's anything that you want to leave all of our contest participants and the attendees with, just any kind of message that you would like to share with them before we end the program.
Again, repeating other people's themes. You guys are terrifyingly good and committed, and you actually finish the story. That is terrifying to someone like me, that I will have to be competing against you guys in a few years. It may be 10 years for the younger ones of you, but again, Ethan Castillo is 16 years old now. It might be, even for the youngest of you, it might be just 2 or 3 years before I have to compete against you. Yeah, go to it. Terrify me.
Yeah, just echoing that. It was so amazing to go through the submissions, and even the youngest creators are so far ahead of what I ever imagined at that age. So it's just the amount of talent here, you know, take it out into the world, whether or not you want to put it online or, you know, however you want to share those stories, as long as you have the courage to share them, which you have because you entered this contest. It's just, that is such a big hurdle to overcome. So you are so far into the game already, and I'm excited to work with you and see what you do next.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say again that I think one of the strongest aspects of this contest is that it is a community effort and that all of the work is shared. And I don't know if contact information of each contributor is included, probably not, but I think that it's in sharing and seeing each other's work. I think a lot of times finding creative peers who are the same age, who have similar interests to you, is one of the most valuable and rewarding things in your artistic growth. You know, I really love this kind of event because it allows professionals like us to answer questions from up and coming artists, but we might not always have time to like answer every single one of your questions. But the people that you grow up with, and you could have lifelong artistic relationships with them where you help each other out for decades and learn from each other for decades. And that's very powerful. So I hope that some awesome new artistic relationships form as a result of this.
Fabulous. Thank you all. I just want to, on behalf of the library, to just thank you, Jean and Shea and Chad, all for sticking around for the Q&A. Thank you also to Shannon for participating and being one of our speakers. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Again, thank you to Jill, our wonderful library director, for emceeing the event. And with all of that, I just want to encourage everybody out there to participate, to make comics, to submit for our contest. We couldn't do it without all of you. So just, you know, from the bottom of all of our hearts, we really love reading your submissions, and we really look forward to seeing how you're going to develop as young authors and artists. And that's what this is all about. So just thank you everyone that was involved. This year has been strange with COVID, but I really feel like, you know, we are getting together and we are creating and we're proceeding, and there's some inspiration there to be taken away. So thank you so much to everyone that participated this year. And with that, we'll go ahead and just end our program. So thank you so much, everyone. Have yourselves a great afternoon and enjoy your weekends.
You're amazing.
Thank you all.